Drill sergeants of Reddit, what was the funniest thing a recruit said? Context. In army basic training, anything said to a drill sergeant needs to end with their title. Yes. Drill sergeant. No. Drill sergeant. So early into basic our drill sergeant was handing out rifles. He asks my battle buddy for his serial number. Battle buddy rattles it off. So the drill sergeant, not having heard his title given, asks him, who the do you think you're speaking to? A drill sergeant? An asshole? A dickhead? My buddy, realizing he forgot the title and now fully flustered, goes to say apologies. Drill sergeant, but instead says apologies. Dickhead. Both their eyes got wide at the same time in totally different ways. The private realized he may not survive what comes next. The drill sergeant is giddy with excitement that a private just called him a dickhead to his face. Exercise ensued. I remember when I was in boot camp we were in the squad bay cleaning our rifles. One recruit was in crutches and so he was just sitting down basically watching us clean ours. Drill instructor walks over and asks WTF he is doing. Recruit. This recruit doesn't have a rifle. DI. No. Start cleaning your crutch, recruit. Recruit. The crutch, sir? DI. Yes, now clean it and say the crutch creed. Recruit. Starts to brush his crutch. This is my crutch. There are many like it, but this one is mine. Without me, my crutch is useless. Without my crutch, I am useless. DI. WTF. Shut the hell up, recruit. Drill instructor had to walk away and put his hat in front of his face so we couldn't see him laugh. We all had a good laugh about it that night during square away time. There are plenty more stories that made us laugh once boot camp was over. When I was in basic training, there was someone going through their locker in the middle of the night making hella noise. So one of the trainees sat up in bed and screamed, "Shut the up." Full stop. The person going through the locker was a drill instructor doing a random check. The trainee who told him to shut the up got ripped a new one. But the instructor was probably dying laughing on the inside. I don't know how they keep a straight face. Not a DS, but a Navy recruit. I was on colors duty and it's kind of windy in Chicago. One time, we did not tie the fastening ropes well enough so the flag ended up half-mast. Our RDC retrieves me and the other recruit from class an hour later and proceeds to yell at us and asks, "Who the died?" The other recruit, without missing a beat, says, "Chris Farley." Which was technically true cause he died a few days before. The RDC had to leave to compose himself, before proceeding to have us stand at attention for a few hours while all the other ship RDCs came by and made fun, yelled at us, making Farley and SNL jokes. In Navy boot camp we have a thing before battle stations called Amnesty Night. This is where we confess all the dumb we managed to get away with to our RDCs and not get in trouble. Our chief had a lisp, which we all talked about throughout boot camp, but never in front of him. We had a pretty short guy named Patterson that could do a perfect impression of our chief. Patterson proceeded to stand up in the middle of forward IG and said, "Why the do I have to keep touching your dirty ass, Kivith? You mother earths make me thick." The Enita division was dying. The RDCs were in tears about to fall out of their chairs. When everything quietened down, our chief looked at us and said, "I hate you Guiths. But that waffling funny." The entire division proceeded to die again. Edit. I'm a military nurse and as part of our orientation we had to give vaccines to the new recruits at MCRD. One of the recruits was probably 4 nothing. They have yellow handprints on the wall for the bicillin shot and he couldn't even reach them. One of the DIs just kept yelling at him, "Defy all odds, recruit. Defy all odds." Asked a private the difference between cover and concealment. Private said, "Drill sergeant, you asked what seems like a very important question which I am supposed to know the answer." However, this private was imagining not being called on and was not paying attention to the question. Drill sergeant, Sounds like he was trying to cover his ass rather than conceal his laziness. Not necessarily what a recruit said but had to do. Imagine this. 0500 in physical training formation. Everyone is dressed in the proper uniform, grey shirt, blue shorts, white sock and a shiny new pair of New Balance dad shoes, except for Recruit Dumbus. Recruit Dumbus realized he didn't have clean white socks while getting ready and thought it would be okay to join the formation in knee-high, green, socks. The following conversation transpired. Drill Sergeant, DS. Trainee Dumbus. What the hell do you have on? TD. Mum. I didn't have clean white socks so I used my uniform socks instead. DS. Trainee Dumbus. Do you know what cover tops is? TD. Yes. Mum. DS. Trainee Dumbus. I want you to cover tops your ass over to the barracks and acquire a pair of white socks from your laundry bag. TD. Stares blankly. DS. Low crawl your ass to the barracks and get the correct pair of socks on your damn feet. TF. Does what he's told and low crawls nearly a mile to the barracks. Nearly dies from exhaustion and humiliation. Sincerely. I ordered the platoon to form up facing west. Untroop asked. Master Corporal. Our west or your west? I just walked away angrily and let his peers sort him out. I came out of my office and they were facing east. Recruit fired all his blank ammo during ambush response training. He crawled in ditch to opposite where the aggressors were and started throwing rocks at them. DI came running in middle of the road blowing his whistle and screaming, "What the are you doing?" Dot. Recruit screamed back. Throwing hand grenades, Drill Sergeant. Without missing a beat. The DI screamed out, "I'm standing," and walked away. I feel bad for the guy but I gotta say it. His last name was Smelly. As in smelly. Semicolon. So when I had him come into the class for the orientation admin day the very first day, I asked everyone to stand up and give their rank, name, serial number. So when I heard Private Smelly, I lost it. I felt so bad for the guy. Edit. I don't know what fully came of Smelly, but this was back in 2007 and I had heard he didn't make it through BMQ and VR'd, voluntary release. This was in the Canadian Forces. We were on a casual run for PT nice and easy 3 kilometers. Finish the run. Pump PVTX walks up to the SGT conducting the run and says, "SGT, when does the real run start?" Thought he was hilarious. Ended up running 12 kilometers that day. That guy. My dad tells me this story all the time. Back in the 80s when he was doing basic training, the DS was going down the line asking why everyone joined and my dad was like, "Oh, I don't have a good answer for this," and was nervous. DS goes to the guy next to my dad. Asks a question and the guy says, "To defend my country, sir." DS goes, "That's bull. I really needed a haircut, sir." In basic training. Stood by our beds. Inspection of platoon commander. In she comes. Walks around. Asks everyone questions. Guy next to me, who I'm still mates with now, got asked what he did before he joined. He answered. Proud as lunch and for everyone to hear. I sold condoms and nuts. Mum. Her and the corporals just started laughing. Couldn't help it. Marching the troops back to the barracks after lunch. I noticed a recruit with a white stain on his hip pocket. I halted the platoon and got in the recruit's face. Me. Recruit. That white stain on your shirt better be because you're excited for this afternoon's training. Recruit. No, Sergeant. I'm saving my snack for later. Me. What snack are you saving? Not a drill sergeant. Back in 2000 at Paris Island we were doing Warriors breakfast after the Crucible. The series commander are asking questions like, "Where are you from?" and "Why did you join?" and so forth. They get to this Cambodian kid and they ask him why he joined up. His response was, "Because it was raining." The series commander is like, "Explain." It turns out the kid was like fresh off the boat in New York City. Didn't speak any English. And it started raining, so he ducked into a recruiter's office. They signed his ass up and he just went along with it. He learned English in boot camp. One guy got selected to go to the Natick Human Research Center after basic, which is basically a place where they use soldiers in experiments to test new gear. So he gets his pamphlet or whatever from the DS, and as he's walking away he says, "Well, I didn't want to rob a dick in my ass, but I guess I'm getting one," and the DS just lost it laughing. Had to close the door to his office. Our DS called us a bunch of arseholes who were not team players. So we came up with a cadence that had us yelling week to week, cheek to cheek. Us arseholes stick together. The DS would try to hide his smiles when we pulled that one out. Standing in formation at Fort Knox about to head to the range and everyone needs their gloves. One private comes out without them and the DS screams, "Private, where the are your gloves?" In this thick Tennessee accent he goes, "Well, damn drill sergeant, I must have done left them some bitches upstairs." The DS, from New Jersey, just dies laughing. Obligatory not a drill sergeant. But I was US infantry. Serving in Korea. We were part of a mixed Korea unit. And during a briefing, one of the Korean soldiers fell asleep. Our sergeant wakes him up and begins screaming at him. The soldiers said, "No, sergeant. You got it all wrong. In Korea, it's a sign of respect to listen with your eyes closed, because then you have no other distractions." The sergeant bought it. And as soon as the meeting was over and the sergeant was out of earshot, we all cracked up. Not a DS. We had a specific response that we had to say if our TI or any other asked us a question in basic. They would say something. Or if you had to go over to them, you had to say trainee, last name, reports as ordered when you got there or before you could answer. A lot of trainees screwed it up and would say reporting instead of reports. One day some new kid in another flight, still in his civilian clothing, said he was reporting to his TI, and when he got there our TI stopped our flight so we could watch what happened. That guy stood there reporting the weather and telling the TI what shapes he saw in the clouds because only meteorologists do the reporting. I'll never forget watching some guy sit there and tell 52 other people what shapes he saw in the clouds at the top of his lungs. Obligatory not a DS. We were on the grenade training range in groups of 3. This is where there are various stations where you and your group have to throw dummy grenades at things. When you're the one throwing, you were supposed to yell to your group, "Cover me while I throw my grenade." This one guy from the south with an accent to match yelled, "Cover me while I throw this here grenade." Before he lobbed it, I had never seen the DS monitoring that station laugh so hard. Required to have creases in your uniform. And if you know anything about it, you can sometimes up and give a shirt 2 creases. Commonly referred to as railroad tracks. On morning information for uniform inspection it was discovered someone had done this to their shirt. So in come the DIs. At one point one of them yelling asked recruit X, "Are you a train conductor?" And sure as he was before he joined. So he answered, "So yes sir." Everyone got awkward quiet for what felt like 5 minutes, but I'm sure it was only 5 seconds. And then the group of them went on yelling at the next person in formation. My brother did Army JROTC, then joined the Air Force. In Army JROTC at the time, all officers were sir no matter their gender. The Air Force, being a little more progressive, used ma'am for female officers. After taking maybe 2 steps off the bus on day 1 of basic, a female drill instructor asks him a question, in which he replies, "Yes, sir," which prompted her to yell, "Do I look like I have a dick?" Then made him drop and do various torturous PT exercises loudly counting 1, "Mom," 2 "Mom," etc. As soon as she is done with him and he picks up his bags, a male instructor walks up and asks him a question, in which he loudly replies, "Yes, Mom." Edit. The count was actually Mom. You're a mom, not a sir. 1. Edit 2. At basic I got the whole DS team laughing from a comment. DS starts yelling at me in my face about God knows what. On and on. He is from the deep south and has a super strong Mississippi accent. I am an immigrant from South Africa. My accent sounds English or Australian to US people. Only been in the USA for a few years and have been living in Oregon. And honestly I can only understand a bit of what he is saying. At the end he concludes with, "Do you understand the words coming out of my mouth, Private?" I replied, "Drill Sergeant. No. I am really struggling with your accent, Drill Sergeant." There was silence for a bit, then they all started laughing. When I say down, you say Osaiwa. When I say up, you say Osa weak-hearted. Down. We are. Asterisk. Up. Ed. Asterisk. I legit had to turn and walk away for a minute. Not a DI. We were marching standing in formation for a few hours doing parade practice over and over so the people running it could get the entire ceremony down pat. A military parade ceremony. Not a walk down the boulevard parade. For us in formation. It just sucked. At one point we'd been standing at attention for a prolonged period when I noticed the fellow in front and to the left of me was standing in a puddle. It hadn't rained. The guy had just relieved himself while standing at attention. Once the DI noticed, he caught all kinds of hell for being an idiot and not falling out of formation to go to the latrine. I felt sorry for him and myself. Would have given him an award for outstanding military bearing. He didn't flinch or anything. Went to boot camp, Marines, in 2005. There was no room for bull back then. And I assume that is still the case. Well, about halfway through boot camp one night we finish everything and are in our racks to sleep. The moment the drill instructor flips the light switch off, one of the recruits yells across the squad bay, "Good night, sir." Full stop. So simple. So stupid. Yet so absolutely hilarious. We spent the next 30 minutes getting it in the dark. I still look back at the moment and laugh sometimes. I had a friend tell me this story. In the Marines a chit is similar to a demerit. A Marine had something wrong with his uniform and was going to receive a chit. The drill sergeant gets in his face and yells, "Private. What is a 4-letter word that starts with C and ends with T?" The private thinks for a moment and sounds off back, "Sir." To which the drill sergeant replies, holding back laughter, "No, Private, a chit." Think this answer might be backwards to your question, but when I was in Air Force field training we had a cadet Scooby, pronounced with a long osio. Naturally everyone called her Cadet Scooby, as in Scooby-Doo, which she did not appreciate. Apparently we weren't the first to come up with this joke. Anyways, Cadet Scooby was acting as flight commander that day and someone asked, "Cadet Scooby, may I ask a question?" Cadet Scooby then immediately corrected the slip of the tongue. It's pronounced SCOBY. The drill sergeant happened to be standing next me at this time and said under his breath, "Ruro Raggy." The few of us that could hear him let out a muffled laugh and then he turned to us and smiled. Still to this day one of the funniest you had to have been there moments, and Ruro Raggy is still something I laugh at. During inspection the section leader would walk up to every recruit and look them over for issues with their uniform. Everyone had a cap badge on their beret and it's supposed to be over the left eyebrow. Unfortunately for me, when I put my beret on, the cap badge was directly in the middle of my head. SGT walks up to me, stares me in the eye and says, "PVT. X, are you the mythical cyclops of the underworld?" Quite a few push-ups later and a lot of humiliation I finally figured out what was wrong. Never made that mistake again. In basic the drill sergeants would frequently check weapons to make sure they were on safe. They found someone who had left their weapon on fire a few times every day. However, on day towards the end, very early in the morning, they yelled out, "Number XX. Where are you?" The kid comes out of his sleeping bag confused and they start screaming, "You're on fire, Dumbrus," and instead of checking his weapon, he drops and rolls. This was the second time I watched the stone cold instructors laugh uncontrollably. I went to a military college and our first year is called Nob year, where the freshman year is one long boot camp. We were standing in line, waiting to go into lunch formation when we had a couple upperclassmen came to yell at one of my classmates. Apparently he had requested for extra time off around Thanksgiving. You see Nob, what is the meaning of you asking for special leave? Nob, sir. My stepbrother is in a band and about to go on tour. This will be the last time he is home for a year. Sir. You see a tour. With what band? Nob, sir. They are opening for Motley Crue. Sir. You see what's the name of his band? Nob, sir. Guns N' Roses. Sir. You see God. What an awful name. They will never make it. At the end of Nob year, my classmate decided not to come back to school but instead go and be a roadie with his stepbrother's little band. Planning a rucksack march, a private asked his section commander what he needed to pack. The SGT said, pack everything on your kit list. As we are out on a 16-kilometer, 10-mile march, I'll look the private up and down and note his ruck looks a little light. I whispered to my friend, his SGT, this fact. At the next rest break the SGT goes over and picks up the private's rucksack. There appeared to be nothing in it. The SGT, who's 6'3", 240 pounds and mean and ugly, goes to the private and after a few expletives asks him to empty out his ruck. The young private pulls out a piece of paper and says, "You told me to pack my kit list, SGT." It took every will in my being not to lose my at that moment. Needless to say, the young private had remedial ruck marches for the rest of the week. Afterwards us section commanders had a great laugh at the audacity of the young lad. Man, I miss those days. I went through OCS a couple years back. Our RDC was a stickler for making sure that our socks were pulled all the way up during PT and would routinely yell at candidates to pull their socks up by yelling, "Motivate your socks." A couple days into OCS and we're doing PT and the RDC spots a girl with her socks bunched at her ankles. He rushes over and gets in her face and requests that she motivate her socks. She, being new, has no idea what this means yet. He yells it again and she started to panic. She looks down at her socks and yells at the top of her lungs, "You can do IT socks." RDC does an about face and despite his best attempt he absolutely loses it while trying to make a hasty exit. I had one recruit come up to me in hysterical laughter and say, "Petty officer, you have to see this guy's tattoo. It's holiday routine. Late in training so not a lot going on." So I say, "Sure. Let's just call this kid Chuck." Chuck was a little off, but an outstanding recruit. If I told him to take an enemy-held hill, he would do it or die trying. He was in charge of head, bathroom, cleanliness, and did an exceptional job. Way too intelligent to be in the Navy. He is a nuke now. So Chuck shows me the inside of his bottom lip, and it says, "Bastard." And I'm all types of WTF. He was raised by his grandma and she said there are two types of men in the world. Beautiful bastards and sorry bastards. I heard a recruit say this. DS. Did your mother send you here to me off? You write home and tell her you're doing a good job. Recruit. Sir. No. Sir. My father sent me here to my mother off. DS spun on his heel and marched off with his head down and his hand over mouth. Edit. For those of you picking the fry out of pepper. In 1976 at the USCG Training Center Alameda Boot Camp, you were not allowed to begin a sentence without using sir nor end it without using sir. The DIs at this facility are not called drill instructors. This is where the story occurred. If you were asked what word you must use when speaking to a superior, the proper response was sir, sir, sir. Sir, yes, sir was used when asked a yes or no question. Sir, aye, sir was used when given an order. Getting that response wrong would get you at least 20 push-ups. Maggots. I had a recruit I nicknamed Giggles, as she couldn't help but giggle anytime anything was happening or we were just still. I came up with a rule that anytime I caught her, she had to tell me a joke. And if it sucked, her whole squad had to push formation just before chow. We were sharking. And sure enough, Giggles starts a thing. "Alright Giggles. Let's hear it." Her response. How do you get an elephant in the subway? No clue, giggles. How do you get an elephant in the subway? You take the S out of sub and the F out of way. I walked 2 laps trying to figure it out. And finally turned to face her and said, giggles, there's no F in. Just as I got it. Alright, giggles, you win this round. In boot camp you never touch a drill instructor's cover. Well, this one day we were in the squad bay real chill, so the DIs took their covers off. Well, one set theirs on a footlocker while we were in a school circle around the senior. The senior got done and told us we were on free time and told all the DIs to go in the hut with her. Well, we turned to our footlockers and noticed the one left her cover. In a 3 recruit operation we decided to return it to her. 2 recruits picked up the footlocker with the cover and walked over to the hut door. A third, very nervously, ran up to the door and knocked. The DI whipped open the door and screamed, "What recruit? Mom, these recruits were just trying to return drill instructor Staff Sergeant Smukatellis cover." She looked down and realized what they had done and snatched it so fast. She quickly covered her mouth and slammed the door. Laughter ensued in the whole bay. The door opened and all we heard was "Shut up, fools," which only made us laugh louder.